Alright, what we're working with today is mid-segment of triangles. And so you should have already learned some of the vocabulary from the video, but just a mid-segment, let's highlight that. It's a good vocabulary word. Mid-segment of a triangle. It is a line, that connects the midpoints of the sides of a triangle. So this right here is a mid-segment. So that means H is a midpoint, so HI is equal to GH. And then J is a midpoint, so IJ is equal to JK. Okay? It is parallel to the opposite side, so HJ is parallel to GK. And it's half the length of the opposite side. So if this is 5, this is 10. Okay, so that's the mid-segment theorem. And what we're going to do is just do a couple rules with it, trying to fill in some blanks, and then we'll solve for some x's. Okay, so here's kind of a complicated picture. What I like to do is I like to try and just find all the numbers first. So I'm going to deal with this 5. So since this EB is 5, then that means this part is 5 also, because they're midpoints. They're equal. So now if you notice, this is the side that's parallel here. Okay? So we know the mid-segment is half of the opposite side, so this opposite side is 10, so this mid-segment here is 5. So now we've just taken care of the stuff that runs kind of diagonal up and to the right. So now let's take care of this one. So B to C is the side, E to D is the mid-segment. So since B to C is 12, this mid-segment is half of that, so it's 6. And then let's look at the last one. E to F is 7. So then this whole thing is the mid-segment opposite, not the mid-segment, but the base opposite. And so this whole thing is 14 because it's twice as long. Now we should have enough information. Let's see if we could fill it in. So A to C, A to C is this base one, this green one, and it's parallel to EF. And since this has a line above it, we need to make this segment EF also. And then segment FD, here's FD, that's the green one, or the yellow one. That's parallel to BA, segment BA. Okay, so segment BF, BF is congruent. Well, we didn't do anything with this, but we know that F is the midpoint, so those are equal. And so now, BF is going to be congruent to that other piece, FC. But it's also congruent to ED, because remember this mid-segment is half, so it's the same as those little midpoints, or those mid-segment, those half things. Okay, the rest of our answers are numbers because they have equal signs, and we've already kind of written them down, so we should be okay. So A to C is that whole green one, which is 14. F to D is that little mid-segment that's yellow, so that's 5. A to B is this whole base, which is 10. E to D is the mid-segment that's blue, which is 6. And F to C is half of the base, which is 6. So when you're dealing with numbers, I find it easier just to go fill in all the numbers that you can and then come back and answer. All right, now let's look at some problems where we have to do solving for x. So make sure you write these down so you have them. It'll be a good reference. This is my mid-segment. Remember that the rule is mid-segment equals 1/2 the base. Another way to write it is 2 mid-segments equal the base. Some students will prefer the second one because they don't have to deal with fractions. And especially this one, if I take half of 15, I get 7.5, which is kind of a bad number and aggravating to work with. So let's do it this way. So I have 2 mid-segments, and it's going to equal the base. So I distribute my 2. I minus my 10. Oops, that's not 15. 5, and I divide by 4. So my x is 5 over 4. So it's still a fraction or decimal, but a little easier to deal with. Okay, so again, I did 2 mid-segments equal the base. If you would have done the mid-segment equals half the base, you would have got that same answer, but it would have just been a little bit more difficult if you were having to work with fractions. Okay, let's look at this last one. Again, my mid-segment. I can either my mid-segment equals half my base, or I'm going to do 2 mid-segments equal the base again. So I'm going to do 2 times x minus 4 is equal to 3x plus 21, because I need 2 of these. So I get 2x minus 8 is equal to 3x plus 21. And I made a mistake with my negatives again. It's up early and I'm making mistakes. Okay, so I subtract the x's. I'm going to add 8. And I'm going to get a negative distance, which shouldn't happen. But I just made a bad problem, and I don't want to go back and do it. So, again, usually you're going to get positive numbers because distances should be positive. But again, 2 mid-segments equals the base. And so what I should have done is I should have made this a bigger number. Or this one a smaller number, and I made a mistake there. Okay? But again, 2 mid-segments equal the base, and then you just distribute and solve.